So this is working probably.
Professor?
Yes.
Just one quick question. In my Glimpse IDE.
Can I? Sorry, one sec.
Sure.
Remind me, because I think you mentioned right that on the recording you cannot hear the questions. So remind me to repeat the question. Sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, sure. So in my IDE, Eclipse IDE, the JDK, my current JDK is a 1.8, but it always asks me to go back to 1.5. Otherwise, it will just show error to me.
You may have. Sorry.
You can repeat the question.
Yes, he was asking that in his Eclipse IDE, he had Java 1.8, but it asked him to go back to 1.5.
Yeah.
I have no clue what you did with your Eclipse, man. Now, you may have an older version of Eclipse. Is it Mars?
No, actually, it's Kepler.
That's older than Mars, right?
I think it's
Newer than Mars? No, Mars is the newest one.
Well, anyway, it compiles and it runs smoothly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It should.
I guess that is good. So just.
We can play with your computer after the class and we can probably figure it out. But it's one of those things. That's why I use Gradle, because Gradle is programmable and scriptable and usually works the exact same way all over. Whereas IDEs and GUIs and things like that just who knows what the heck they do.
So you actually go into you use the bash.
Yes.
And then you just do the assignments in bash.
You need a text editor, right? But you run the things with Gradle W tests and Gradle W, right?
Oh, I haven't been doing that.
I mean,
I've been using the GUI.
It is okay to use the GUI if it works for you. It's just that the other thing always works. And in fact, that's how I grade. I grade it in a Linux box that doesn't even have Eclipse installed, right? I grade it by running /Gradle W grade.
Do you look at the code?
Of course I do, yes.
Okay.
So I do look at the code, and I do look at the pull requests and make comments on the pull requests and things like that. I'm trying to actually give you a lot of feedback on the code, even feedback that's more style, like just good variable names, right? Or those kinds of things as opposed to.
I have one question. I did my assignment 0, 1, 2, but after then I checked, I pushed in the code, then I just checked back in for the assignment 3 or 4. So all my changes, whatever I did in 0 and 1, 2 like that, it's gone from my system. My Eclipse
Yes.
folder.
Okay, let me try to repeat the question and restate the question. You did all the assignments, and now when you go back, you submit different assignments, 1, 2, and 3. Then when you go back to the master branch, this stuff disappears. That is the point. That is Git. It's beautiful. It works that way on purpose.
Can you show us?
How do we save our copy then?
Mine are saved.
It's actually there. It's just you have been following the instructions. That's your problem. No.
Yeah.
The thing is that every branch is purposefully independent of every other branch. That is the point. When you create a branch, you're saying, I wanna have a version of this with this name, right? So you do checkout -b A1. That creates a branch A1. You do changes, you do add, you do commit. When you do git checkout master, what you are saying is, go back to master branch. And so all this stuff is not actually deleted. You can do git checkout A1 and it goes to A1.
Oh.
It's just out of the way on purpose.
Sorry. I think that you do git checkout master, you basically pull out everything from the server, right?
Not necessarily. You have your own copy of the master branch. When you do git pull, you pull from the server.
If you do git checkout, that's what does it do?
Git checkout says change to this branch.
Save it in Notepad.
You could save it in Notepad. Yes, why not?
I think like the problem that I'm having is like I'm sending you all the files, and I'm following, like you said, exactly,
Yes.
you know, step by step on the assignment page. But still, I'm doing that, and I tried to send you assignment 5 just a couple hours ago, and it won't let me switch branches, and I just think it's just all messed up.
Well,
But can you show us like exactly?
let me show you. Oh, this is amazingly cool. I'm still amazed at Mosh. But this is actually on my server. This is the stuff that I look at, right? So this is my repo, right? So I can do, can you guys see? Is it big enough? Yeah. Git checkout -b a1, right? I have all this stuff that has been modified. Git checkout just says go there, right? It doesn't change. And -b is a new branch. So if I do it again, it's going to tell me you can't because A1 already exists, right?
How do you delete without going into?
There is horrible things. Git branch -r -d or something like that. But why?
Because I've gotten confused before, and I actually went into I used to do this. I went into Bitbucket and I deleted the branch manually there, but then I tried to remake it.
That deletes the branch from deleting. Here's the deal: you have your copy, and the remote has its copy, and they both could have the same branches or not. So if you delete it over there, it's not the same as deleting over here.
So it's different.
Yeah.
Branches. Okay.
You have your branches. The remote has its branches. Usually they are connected, but they don't really have to be.
Okay. So that makes sense.
So let me do this. Git. Actually, let me do this. Git checkout master. That just sends me back to the master branch, right? And I'm gonna do horrible things. Git stash.
Oh, I've done that before. Doesn't that?
Git stash just says, take all my changes and just put them somewhere else.
And that's
right?
why it says commit your changes or stash before you can
Yes.
switch branches.
The stashing just says, forget about all my changes, but they are there. So if you do git stash, I know something, it will show you this.
I've had to rewrite all my code.
Well, you can bring the stash back, right? Does git status tell
I
me?
didn't know that.
No.
That was cool. Yeah, I mean, you can bring back the code.
Git stash list.
Do the checking.
Well, once you have submitted, but if you do git stash list, it tells you what you stashed.
Okay, get stash list. Okay, so.
And then there is some other magical incantations that will actually reapply what you stashed.
Okay.
Because this just shows you that it exists, right? And then there is a different magical incantation to reapply. Now, normally you shouldn't need to do this.
Why did it was like it was stuck or something, because I had submitted those changes to you, but I still had the same issue, and I thought that I had sent them.
Well, you could send them on a different branch.
Okay.
It's fairly easy to get confused when either you're working on more than one machine or more than one person is working on it. And I think in fact, that's why I don't want to push changes to my repo, because I push changes and I cloned my repo to create all your repos. And somehow they got updated when I pushed stuff. So I don't want to do that anymore.
So if we want to check
But-
back in, our changes will be there in the big bucket, right?
Wait, let me do this. Git checkout -b demo. I created a new branch demo, right? I'm gonna go edit something. And I'm going to use BI because I'm an idiot. There's no particular reason to torture yourself with BI, but I'm torturing myself with BI. I edited it. I added 2 blank lines. Doesn't do a thing, right? But officially, I added them. Git status. It tells me that I modified it. Bitbucket doesn't know anything about this yet, right? In fact, my repo hasn't really changed. I just changed my files. I have my folder. I have my repo, which is the stashing thing, right? And then I can commit. When I do git add this guy, and you may be the one that's sending all the files.
Yes, I don't know.
If you do git add dot, then it will add all of them. If you do git add and give the name of the file, it only adds that file.
So my question was, I don't see git add on the assignment 5 instruction. I don't see that anywhere, so I don't know where.
It is there
it's
now.
at.
Sorry. Maybe my instructions were wrong. That's normal.
So the git add is it the same as git commit?
No. Git add just says these changes were on purpose, add them, right? Add them to the commit,
Okay.
to the possible commit. Then git commit is this is really, really true. Does that make sense? So this actually lets you play with this stuff, and you could add a bunch of files later on. I tend to not do any of these things, but if you want to be pretty, especially if you're working on a distributed environment, you're working with different people, right? You are going to have horrible stuff that you do to your code to get it to work, right? And you normally do horrible stuff to your code to get it to work, and then you clean it up, right? And you don't want those other guys to see the horrible stuff in the middle, right? There is no reason for them to see how the sausage was made, right? We all know what goes in there, but you don't really want to see it, right? So you can squash your commits and mix them and do all sorts of things before you send. I never do any of those things, right? So once I did this, right, git add still hasn't really done much. All I did was add it to the possible, add it to the staged. Haven't committed.
At what point do we do that? Is that the beginning, like before we say git checkout master?
No.
Git pull over?
After you made changes, right?
Okay.
Git checkout master just says go back to the master branch.
And that's supposed to be before we actually type our code, or
Yes.
because it says like instructions, modify your file so it complies with the instructions, and then it is like open git bash or your terminal, navigate, load any changes. So I don't know if that's
Okay, sorry, that may have been confusing you. The modifying was not in the order. I am an idiot because I didn't realize that you guys were gonna this, right? Modify that, but this is right. This is the right.
So
These are the instructions. Yeah,
Wait,
Okay.
where is that? Sorry,
you get one for each assignment, right?
Oh, okay. So
They do the exact same thing. I just changed the numbers,
okay.
which is actually wrong because I forgot to change the date, and so they were doing the past.
So what if I've already done, so I did all my methods for assignment 5, but I didn't do the load any change, like where do I start?
Okay, it doesn't terribly matter if you did stuff like that. You can, if you haven't done commits. If you've done commits, then life becomes more painful. Actually, if you haven't done any adds, right? Nothing has changed. Git didn't care about any of the changes. You can do git checkout master, you can do git pull, and it will usually not be a problem unless somebody has changed that file in between. That somebody, maybe you from different computer or something like that. That's where we have issues, right? As long as it wasn't changed, you can do whatever, right? It's a lot more comfortable if you do it from the very beginning, but
Yeah. At what point would we do the git add?
The git add
Just
is
that file.
after you have changed stuff on the file, right?
So that, can you go back to the instructions for submitting?
Yes.
So like when in this process,
CD, right? Git checkout master, git pull origin master, right? Now you go here and then you open and modify,
okay,
right? Now, the only possible deviation is if you don't finish the assignment the first time, right? There is no reason that you have to finish it right now. You can do either of two things. I would say what you ought to do is do as if you had, so actually do a git add, and that stages, do a git commit, and that commits to your local repo, do even a git push, and push to the to Bitbucket, because why wouldn't you have a backup of your work?
What's the difference between a commit and a push?
Commit commits to your local repository.
Okay, okay.
Commit changes your computer, not Bitbucket. And push sends it to Bitbucket.
so I would do, okay, so I've done all the things for 5, assignment 5. Now I can go in and say git add.
Wait, you would still, first you do git checkout master, git
Right.
pull, right?
Okay, so
I think we just. why
CD
can't we
here, git checkout master, git pull. Sorry?
Can't we just git check out that particular folder instead of master?
It's not a folder, it's a branch. You haven't created the branch.
Right, can we check out the branch A4 or A5?
You can, if you already have it, yes.
if you already
You
have.
check out that branch and then you pull.
Yeah, I think for the, I did the third assignment for 4, I didn't go to the master. Because
Well, here's the problem. The possible problem, right? I want you guys to do the easy way. You have a master branch that has everything, and your branches, you have one branch per assignment, and they don't touch the other 5. If you start your assignment, your branch A4 from your branch A3, right? Then now you have all the changes in A3. Chances are that nothing would happen. But if you then change A3, now you're going to have discrepancies among those two, right? And so if you forget and you make the changes on 2 different branches, then there may be merge conflicts. So I would strongly recommend that you always start your branches from master. And eventually, you send a pull request, I merge it, and then master has the exact same.
So how would I check out branch A5 or A4?
Just do git checkout A5.
Oh, just A5.
Wait, depends. Wait, there's two things. One is create the branch if it has never been created. Git checkout -b, and then whatever name you want.
Yeah, so it's already created.
If
so
it's
now
already
like-
created, it's just git checkout A5 and then git pull.
Okay, git pull A5 or
Git-
origin?
You can do git pull or you can do git pull origin A5.
And what exactly does that do?
That actually brings the changes from the remote repo,
Okay,
from Bitbucket. And it's a good idea to get used to doing that.
that would be anything that you have modified since.
That could be something that I have modified since. I'm going to be merging your pull requests, so you want to start from there. In a distributed thing, this would be something that your other teammates did, and so you want to start from the latest version.
What happens if you're in Eclipse and you're modifying 2 assignments at once? How would you go about doing that?
That's not that big of a deal because you don't have to do git add.
What do you do?
What do you mean? You can do the 2 git adds independently. I could, right? I'm here. Git status. I have this git branch. I have demo, right? And A1 and master. So I can do git. I can do vim a two.
So you do them?
I do Vim because that's my text editor on this machine. You do Eclipse, you do Visual Studio Code, you do Notepad, you do whatever the heck you use to edit text files. Now, I have both of them, right? In fact, only one of them has been, what you would normally have is this. This is, when you do git status, this is what you would see.
Yeah,
You modify both of those files,
Yeah, that's what I saw.
And
right?
if you're seeing all 8 chapters or whatever, or 8.
Well, you see other stuff
I mean, my list is way longer.
because you have the class path and those things. I don't know why you see them.
Okay, so that's fine.
It's okay as you don't add them because that would make the pull request harder. Something is messed up with your git ignore. Maybe you haven't done git pull from checkout master, and so.
So I can do git add now.
Git add and give the name of the file that you want to add.
Oh, wait, so wait, you do get pull?
I can do git pull.
What does that do?
Git pull says bring the stuff from the remote.
From push to?
Bring the stuff that somebody else has pushed to this branch from that remote, right? So let me do this. I did this. Let me do git, actually, git checkout master. I'm back here. Git checkout. I made changes, right? -b demo 1. I created my branch called demo 1. Even though I have modified both of those things, I don't need to add them both. Git add this guy.
You can do it that way? You can just highlight it and then?
This is a different computer than you. Yes, you can. If you're using Windows, it's probably Control Insert and Shift Insert. You highlight, Control Insert, copy, Shift Insert, paste.
I'm trying to git add the assignment 5 here, but it gives an error message say it's fatal path spec.
Me too, same thing. No such file or directory.
Because you are not in the right place. That file doesn't exist.
It's clean.
I copied it.
Yes, it doesn't exist. You are not on. You are in a different folder. No, you're inside A5, so you don't put A5 again.
Don't put A5.
Right? You depends on the name of the file includes, right, the whole thing. So if you are inside A5, you would not add. You would not start your thing with A5. Now, a couple of things, right? Don't type manure. You do either of two things. Either you cut and paste, highlight the thing, git status told me the name of the file, cut and paste, or you use tab. Tab is your friend. When you're typing stuff, tab. Tab. I'm pressing the tab key and it autocompletes for me. When you start typing something and press tab, it will either give you options, like if type A tab. Oops, this one is doing different. On git bash, it should give you stuff, unless there is no completion. Unless, right? Like if you're on A5, you should start typing source. Because it completes from where you are, right?
I still have the no such file or directory.
Because you don't have that file or directory. You are on A5, right?
And then I copied it from the properties.
No. That's from the properties, from git status, right?
Well, I did that, but I don't see anything about the Java.java. All I see is all
Because it hasn't actually changed. Actually, You don't have anything useful, right?
I don't have what?
You don't have anything useful in this commit, or do you?
Well, I did all of assignment 5.
No, you didn't.
Well,
As far as Git is concerned, nothing has changed.
okay.
So maybe you haven't saved, maybe saved it to a different place, maybe, no, you didn't, right? I mean,
I don't know whether you got this folder. I have one folder, A folder, I mean A branch. Then I did change branch. CD is changing the folder, not the branch, right? I mean,
no, CD changes the folder, not the branch.
Oh,
You are still on A4 branch.
A4 branch. So I have to do
You
that.
check out A5,
Check
you
out
have to
A5.
change the branch.
I see.
Right? Normally, you don't do those things too much because you're only working on one branch at a time,
Yeah.
right? Usually.
Yeah, because I got confused. Like it says A5, but in parentheses it says.
That's the branch.
That's the branch. I got it. So I have to go to the branch by doing the checkout. And
Yes,
particular folder.
exactly.
It erased. Who just said? I did all these methods earlier before I
Okay.
came here.
Were you on a branch?
Oh, yes.
Did you stash?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It,
They were all working.
Yeah, that happened to me twice.
It's all like, it's like started
It happened to
over.
me when I was doing assignment 4. All of my code is
Because you-
gone. So
you were doing it on a different
Yeah.
branch.
I was doing it on A4.
That's
Ah,
okay.
that, yeah, so,
Okay.
yeah, I was simply start.
Because it wouldn't let me change.
no, that
What's the
wasn't
due date
an A4.
for assignment 5, 6? Due date?
The due date, probably next Wednesday.
Actually, no.
No? Okay, well then I'm wrong.
Yeah,
Next week is
Yeah.
return.
we can deal with yours, but
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it disappeared because you were
I think
working
so.
in a different branch, right?
Yeah, before I leave, I want to.
Yeah,
get
yeah,
this.
we can do that. Actually, I'll show you how to cut and paste the map.
Is next Wednesday our midterm?
Yes, because our midterm is this coming Wednesday, a week from today.
Okay.
And so the assignment will be due
Next.
2 weeks from today.
Okay.
Assignment 5 and 6 will be due 2 weeks from today.
Okay, so,
5, 6. Yeah, I have some other questions. I probably can ask you during the break.
It's more if they're specific to your machine or to your situation, then that yeah. Yeah.
But I just said in last class, this is better, you know, like face-to-face. It's much better now online.
Oh, yeah.
You can talk to professor and ask all
Yes.
kinds of questions.
Like that coding that thing, I didn't do that.
Mhm.
That helped me out.
Okay. Let me
Or
start.
the Git stuff.
Give this,
Yes.
So,
On the other hand, it is one of those things. Yes, there is not a class on that. You're supposed to learn that by osmosis.
by osmosis.
Yes. It's one of those things, right? That, and I know it's hard and it's overwhelming, but I haven't found a better way to do it. I would much rather teach it to you and overwhelm you, and have you start using it from the very first class, than not do it and have you do this on your first 2 weeks of work.
Well, also it's an 8-week class, right? So you're
Sorry?
freshman time.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, usually it doesn't feel as bad when you have 2 weeks. It's still the same stuff, but yeah, it doesn't feel as bad. Yeah.
I have a question. Does the learning curve feel like we're getting to the point where it's kind of like starting to level off?
It depends a lot about the learning curve. It depends a lot on your background. If you have never programmed, right? If you have never programmed, then the learning curve should suck throughout the semester.
Oh, great.
Now, and that's good. A lot of people already know how to program certain things. And so the learning curve now doesn't suck as much. They're fighting with Git, but They're doing the assignments in 5 minutes. At some point during the semester, we get to the material that they have never seen, and then the learning curve starts up. Hopefully, they'll have Git by then, but so. And actually, for a couple of you guys, this would be kind of a refresher course. You have seen it before, and so the learning curve is going to be beautiful throughout, and you're going to get an easy A.
It's good.
It is.
Yeah.
And many of you have done. Many of you, in whichever language, have done even to ifs and loops in any other programming language or something like that.
I haven't taken any kind of programming since high school. So
You took programming in high school?
it was like Python, but
You're good, man. You have an advantage
That's
over.
I teach that class, AP Computer Science.
You have an advantage over the people who have never used any of this stuff. It's not that bad. It could be worse.
yeah, kind of like if I didn't know directories or
Yes. Yes. And a lot of times, the stuff with Git is more directories and command lines. You don't use the command line ever, then this is horrible, right?
yeah.
And it's actually fairly easy to get your machine messed up. And so now you have a different JDK and your stuff doesn't compile and it's not. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about loops. And then we'll talk about objects, and then we'll talk about loops and then break, and then we'll talk about objects. We have seen how to use recursion to iterate, to do things over and over, right? Loops are kind of a more direct way of doing things over and over. Now, recursion is more general and allows you to do magical things. But for kind of the bread and butter stuff, you can do it with loops, and it loops different than function calls, which makes it good in certain ways. Function calls are good, but if all you're doing is function calls, it's hard to see which ones are recursive or not. Whereas loops, you have a different keyword that tells you here's a loop. So that's the thing. All of them involve doing something over and over, and so you need a condition for when to stop. The do while loop looks like this. You do open brace, put whatever you want to do, close your brace, while condition. The do, the while, and actually the parentheses are part of the syntax. And the braces are almost part of the syntax because you probably want to do more than one thing, more than one statement. I never used this one, but the do while loop executes at least once. It goes and does this stuff first. Shoot first, ask questions later. So it shoots first and then goes and asks questions. We'll probably do a couple of examples of do whiles. I never use them because normally you want to ask questions before shooting. You don't want to shoot people, by the way, but the saying is you shoot first, ask questions later. Don't shoot anybody. One important thing, within the loop, you want to be changing that condition. If you never change the condition, then you are going to keep running forever, right?
So you want to be doing if, do.
Well, actually, the condition is like an if, right? The condition, so like you're doing something like do this. Let me have an actual example, right? So I'm going to be reading things from the scanner, right? And adding them up. So I do, please enter a number. I read it. And then I add it up and then I check. While the number that was entered is in 0. If I don't put this line, right, then that thing would run forever. that line in there changes my condition, or changes the values that my condition depends on. Does that make sense? So eventually the user will enter 0, and that condition will now be false. And so I will get out of the loop. Does this idea make sense? I normally use while loops. I use them a lot more than do while loops because I normally think about checking at the beginning. But the while loop is the same, almost the same syntax. We don't put the do keyword, right? But we are checking at the beginning. So potentially the while loop will never execute this stuff inside, which we call the body of the loop. The body of a while loop may or may not execute. The body of a do while loop always executes at least once.
So it may prompt the user for something.
This one, or like on this one, the while loop, it may do whatever. It checks first before doing it. Okay. So in this case, I'm writing a power function, and we wrote power functions, right? I'm writing a power function, and I check while the exponent is greater than 0, right? I'm passing this exponent. I'm going to multiply by the base and decrement the exponent. Whereas, so I need to check first. If not, I would multiply an extra 1 potentially. If you pass me 0 as the exponent, I would return base instead of 1. Does that make sense? We are doing dangerous things here, right? With recursion, you almost never change your variables, right? You calculate new values, but you don't change your variables. Here, we are changing our values, right? Our values. Exponent changes, right? Pow changes. And so
is this true for every loop?
Yes, normally you want to change stuff, right? Because eventually you want to terminate. So you are changing something inside the loop. So now you need to think about the dynamics. What changed?
So now you have not only the variables changing, but also the...
Now you have the variables changing.
Oh, so how's that any different from recursion?
In recursion, the variables never change.
But don't they change by user input?
Usually, I don't think we ever changed any variables in our recursive stuff. Basically, for read and whatever, no, it never changes. It gets initialized. Should have only one value, right? The next function call has a different value for it, but that's a different function call, okay, right? Maybe you change the variable. Maybe you initialize to 0 and then change it or something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But if not, you can store the value of a variable, but you could make it so that it never changes. So it's a different kind of dynamics. Here you have to kind of make a table and say, okay, what's the value of this and what's the value of that? And those things change over time. So let's do these things. And actually, I feel you because my Eclipse is also messed up. I don't know why. My Eclipse on this particular machine is messed up. Yeah, whatever. Never bug me again. And I thought Mars is the latest Eclipse.
Well, I think it's just regular Java. The Kepler is for Java.
Oh, so it's not. So Mars and Kepler are not versions. They are just, one is for Java EE and the other one is for Java normal. Okay.
Because the last semester we used the Kepler on the database. So
I'm gonna cheat and do horrible things and create it in there. Let's do this one and we can go look. Right? We can actually do, yes. Normally you don't do this, right? When I call this thing, e to the fourth power. And again, we need to do our noise, public static. Run this thing, hopefully it's gonna print what I want, yes. In my first pass to the loop, right, power was 1 and exponent is 4, right? And it prints it, then it multiplies power times base, so now power is gonna be 3 and my exponent is 3, and that's the next pass. Then, no, multiplies power times 3, so now it's 9, and exponent becomes 2. Then power is 27, exponent is 1, and that ends, right? It comes, checks the condition again. Exponent was 0, and I never actually printed it, right?
Are all of these variables, like, or these problems on the assignments, are they going to be, is the test going to be consistent with the homeworks, or will it be like more challenging problems?
Actually, the test should be less challenging problems, right? So the homeworks should, the thing is that they, if you think about it, if the homeworks took you 10 minutes, then life is good, right? If the homeworks took you 2 hours on Eclipse, then, right, the things have to be less challenging because here you only have paper. On the other hand, paper is a lot more lenient with partial credit.
Okay, and what does it mean when you get a null pointer?
That means that you have an object and it's not initialized.
Okay, so if you had string, you just had string and you didn't set it to any.
Actually, that may not, I have no clue. But if you do this, string s equals null, and then I do s plus s, right? It's actually calling a method, and so this is gonna try to call a method on the string s, which is null, and so I'm gonna get a null pointer exception.
So how does that happen?
Yeah.
No, that's not necessarily, you know.
Yeah, it's actually on the next topic, so it's good.
Okay.
But so this is how loops work, right? Let's try to import the other one, and then play a little bit with the other one.
If the variables change also, why are the strings static? It sounds like a silly.
What do you mean strings are static?
Like system out print pow equals. Right, when you say like the variable
This.
static, do you just mean like
Oh, this is a constant. This is not a variable. This never changed.
that never changes? So system.out print usually doesn't change.
What you pass to system.out, they may or may not. In this case,
They do change.
what I'm passing is an expression, so it gets calculated, and yes, it does change.
Okay, so when you say variables change,
I mean, this guy is going to change, and this guy is going to change. This guy never changes, right? So when I'm looking at the function, this makes my life easy. This guy never changes. Life is good. I know the value is 3, the value is 3. Whereas this guy is 1 and then 2 and then 3, right? Or this guy is actually 1, 3, 9, and 27. And this guy, exponent, which is a parameter, but I'm changing it, is actually 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. So I need to know at each given time which value it has, which makes it more challenging. And now it's like, oh, I did this, but I actually put it in reverse order. Did that change something? In this particular case, I could, and nothing would. Well, I can reverse these two guys, and nothing would happen, right?
like pow and base would be switched.
No. Order of the statements. Now, if I do this, right, this will actually change my stuff, right? Instead of printing it like this, it's going to print it. Oh, God. I was, what's your problem, thingy? Oh, scanner. Ah, I hate you, Mac. My fingers don't know how to type. But Macs are really good at recording video. So on that, now I'm going to print differently, right? Instead of starting at 4, now I started at 3. Because now I'm printing after I modify. So this makes ordering important. And it's fairly easy to get confused. Hopefully for this simple stuff, you won't get confused. But eventually, it makes it fairly easy to get confused. Does this idea make sense? Mostly. Let me talk about the other loop so we officially cover it, which is the for loop. The for loop is just a fancy way of writing a while loop in Java. Nothing more than that. If you look at the while loop, right, that we have, this is a do while. Look at the while loop for power, right? We initialize this guy, right? Then we have stuff that we are doing, and then we have stuff that's just for moving the loop, right? And then I have my condition. What the for loop does is put it all together. So I could write, Power is not actually a beautiful example, but let's make it into a for loop. I could actually let me be int exp.
So for is initialization condition.
Yes, let me do this, right? Which actually I should have done. It's usually bad manners to change your parameters, although I tend to have bad manners all the time. I just created a new variable. Now I can convert this into a for loop like this. For, now this is gonna be my initialization. This is my condition, and this is my changing. What are you complaining about? Oops.
You're not supposed to go from exponent to XP.
No, it was just that I had it twice. Yeah. So it's like, you shouldn't have the same variable twice. Which makes perfect sense. Does this idea make sense?
Actually, for the for loop there, the condition, check condition, the prefix minus minus, I think in this condition, the prefix minus minus is the same as
Postfix, yes.
Right, okay.
It doesn't matter because I'm not using the value.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just
You just, I got a habit of writing always the prefix one because it's officially somewhat more efficient.
Yeah.
Usually the compiler will do it either way, and absolutely not. But real men don't eat quiche, and they also write their increments in prefix. It's
in
one of those.
assignment 5, I think there's one function. It's better to use prefix. Anyway,
It's always better to use prefix. Never, never, ever use postfix.
Like
And-
everybody's minus one.
Use minus minus exp as opposed to exp minus minus.
And why not?
Well, when you do this, right, officially, as far as the compiler is concerned, right, I decrement first and then return the new value, right? So I don't need to keep a copy of the old value. It's just the new value that I just put in the variable. When I do this, officially, I need to return this expression evaluates to the old value. It needs to keep a copy of the old value around. Compiler is usually smart enough that it won't do that. But it's always a good idea to make the job easy for the compiler. And what is wrong is to write your code in such a way that this thing actually makes a difference. Because if you do that, you know that you're gonna get beaten by it, right? And you know that on a Friday afternoon, the server is gonna break, and you're gonna go change it and mess up because of that, right? It's like, it's good to feel smart and to do things smart, right? And in this class, you can probably get away with many horrible things because you are smarter than these problems, right? But normally you are gonna get to the point where the problems that you are doing are complicated enough that and you're not as smart on Monday mornings or Friday afternoons, right? So you want to and I don't know who mentioned the last class, right? Write your functions, right? Write small functions and things like that. You make it so simple that even you can understand it. That's the point. As opposed to something that's clever, and so when you are in a clever mood, you get it, right? But then at other times you're like, God, who wrote this horrible stuff? Oops, me. Okay. So try to not be clever. So I would say it is a problem if your code depends on that, unless you are entering a cleverness contest or something like that. So you now know for loops and while loops and do while loops. You know all there is to know about loops. Isn't that cool? Actually, yeah. Loops are all equivalent, right? You could write this stuff one way or the other, with maybe an extra if, right? So let's try to write this, and then so we have read and sum, right? Right now, we declare a variable here, and we have to declare it here. We print, right? Read, add, and keep doing this, right? We guarantee that we do this at least once. And we do this with a while loop. What happens if we do this? Would it work? Yes, it wouldn't, because, right, I have initialized. What do I have to initialize it to? What do I have to initialize it to?
Whatever the user type.
Well, actually, it's going to go on check. So as long as I initialize it to something that's not 0, it works. This is probably less useful, right? Less clear, but it works.
I think this is actually one of the assignment problems.
Oops.
Except for we have to add in only positive numbers.
Oh, so it's not the assignment, you see? I'm not that dumb. I actually do that all the time.
For the assignment, if the user, if it's 0 is typed in first,
Then the sum is 0.
yeah.
Right? So this would work, right? This would work. It's just slightly clever, right? But it would work. Let's see. No, we actually. System.out.println and sum. Oops, I need to pass the read and sum a scanner. And this is horrible because I'm doing system.out, but scanner in equals new scanner of system.in. I run this, right? It works and it prints 7. Woohoo! Life is good.
When we're stuck on a problem, what do you suggest we do? Troubleshoot,
Cry. No.
cry?
One thing that I do all the time, right? There's several things. One, you need to figure out what your problem is. What does being stuck on a problem mean? You kind of have to be self-aware.
Well, I guess what I should say is applying what you're learning in class.
You need to, it's like, okay, what is your problem? Sometimes the problem is, I don't know where the heck the semicolon goes, right? So that's a problem that can be solved, right? Sometimes by asking somebody, right? Sometimes the problem is, I don't know what the syntax of a while loop, right? Do I need a semicolon at the end of a do while loop? Yes, you do, right? So if that's my problem, then Google, right? That kind of stuff is, right? Sometimes the problem is, I don't understand what the heck is this idiot asking me, right? Then the solution is ask, right? Your teacher or your client, what do you mean by this, right? And many times, just verbalizing the question helps you find the answer. When you are typing the email saying, what do you mean by add 5 to A? Oh, it means add 5 to A, all right? But you weren't, right? So verbalizing.
I've literally done that when I was
It is normal. In fact, in real life, here you have to use it with caution because it's officially a class and you're supposed to do all your work yourself and not cheat. But showing to somebody else, talking with somebody else, right? Showing your code to somebody else is cheating in this class. But have a similar problem, right? Try to solve a similar problem, try to solve a smaller problem, try to solve kind of, I'll write something that's not for this class. Right now I cannot do it with adding positives. I'll do one with adding negatives and I can talk about that one, right? Because that's not the assignment for the class. And talk it with somebody else. You need to, the assignments here are not so much, the assignments are here to kind of guide your learning and kind of force you to learn. So if you do that too much, then you're not going to learn, which is bad. But as long as you're self-aware, right? And you're grad students, I'm assuming you guys are self-aware, right? And so there is actually, and you'll find that happens a lot. It's actually called rubber duck debugging. Because many times when you do that, right, you bring somebody else, right? Like, come, sit here, look, I'm doing this, I'm updating this variable, and then when I do this and I add, and oh God, I see what I did, right? And so some people have a rubber duck and bring the rubber duck and like, okay, rubber ducky, let me explain. I'm doing this and this and this, and when you verbalize it, it helps. Many times you bring somebody else, and then you feel like an idiot because you saw it immediately. But many times, right, you need that. And Linus Torvalds, I think, said, with enough eyes, all the bugs are shallow. And so when you are in there, you cannot read it anymore. Then somebody else would immediately tell you, God, you have an extra semicolon here. So your while loop is not actually executing what you thought. It's actually executing the semicolon. And so eventually sit and cry, go walk and come back. Depends on.
Well, I'm using a tutor right now, so I don't know where that puts me. Like, should I instead of saying this is my problem, can you help me? Like, should I say this is a problem? Here's a similar problem. Would that be better?
I would say that would be a lot better.
Okay.
By the way, you can go check J263 above us on the second floor. There are tutors there all the time for some values of all the time. So there is people there all the time who can answer questions. They tend to have a very kind of American schedule. I don't know what they do in summer, so you need to go and check. But the lab is open like from late morning to late night, something like 10 to 10 or something like that, or 10 to 9. And they tend to close early on Friday, but actually work full-time on Sunday. So like Friday they'll close early, but on Sunday they'll open at noon and be here until 9 or something like that.
Okay.
So go check, and that can help. And it's a good idea to use them because supposedly they know this stuff and they can actually, we are trusting them to not give you the answer, right? So the problem is if you just get the answer, that doesn't help you, right? You need maybe clues to how to get the answer, but if you just get the answer, that doesn't help you. All of these things, you can Google the answer. It's not. That doesn't help you, right? So you need to be self-aware of whether you're learning or not. One possibility is to, if you get really stuck on a problem, right, maybe get help, but then do 10 more, right? Because a lot of this is drop and give me 20, right? A lot of this is.
Yeah, but it's more like drop and run your head into the brick wall. Like for me, like,
Yeah.
'cause so
Yes.
so it's good to have someone there, but I see what you're saying. Like, always make sure you get other problems if you're getting help. So I understand that. Like,
Yes.
It's more important about learning the process.
Go do 5 more similar, right? And so that you can see what's the, because if not, you're going to get killed on the midterm.
Okay.
Which is a standard problem. It is actually even more important later on. In this class, you can probably get away with pattern matching and not really learning. If you're a good student and if you get a tutor or something like that, you can not quite memorize the answers, but almost memorize the answers and get a B or an A and not learn. This class you can get away with. Data structures you cannot get away with. And so what you want to make sure that you're not doing that, because you're going to get killed on that.
Now, is data structure, that's SQL, right?
No, that's databases.
So,
Data structures is complicated programming. If you are doing CS or software engineering, you have to do them. If you're doing IT, you may not have to.
okay, I'm doing software. So,
You have to take a data structures class. That's the programming for adults.
for adults. Okay.
That's the adult version of programming. It's more, if you think about it, this class could be valuable to people who are not going to study computer science, right? Kind of as a general intro, right? Oh, now I have a clue about programming. That's going to help me do Excel macros or whatever, right? Write Python scripts. Whereas data structures is a deeper, like programming for me.
So, do you learn about specific database software? Or,
There is a databases class where you learn about specific database software.
okay, I was just wondering. Yeah, like I'll get this.
Yeah, it's fairly easy for people to get confused. It always amazes me, right? Because I used to teach both of them. So they are completely separate in my mind. They're like, they just share the first four letters, right? But that's like, but when you're starting, a lot of people confuse them because they share the first four letters. But they are completely separate.
What is complete?
Data structures and databases.
Okay, okay.
They are two completely separate fields. They don't have much to do with each other.
Thank you.
Sure. So let's change this thing now into a for loop. What do I need to do? How do I change it? I could change it like this. Officially change it into a for loop. Woohoo! I don't have initialization. I don't have that stuff. But that's wrong, right?
It's not going to be correct in the grader.
Yes. Well, the grader would work. I would do the code review and tell you not to do this, right? But that's gonna be interesting. What is my changing? What is my changing of the variable?
It's not changing. Well, I mean, it's nothing.
No, this is the changing. Or right in this loop. So this is gonna be horrible.
So it's gonna run forever.
No.
Whatever someone puts in.
But I need to write this horrible. Reordering all this stuff just because I want to. Just because I can. This is not how you write it. This is I would better use a different loop. I could write it like this. It's usually a clue if you're repeating stuff or putting ifs inside your fors that you're using the wrong kind of loop. But so this would print, right? Then starts with 1, checks that it's not 0, reads, right? Adds and then prints again. And we'll come back and read it. So this would actually work. It is horrifying, but it would work. I printed twice. Why? Should printing wrong? No. It prints twice. So what's my problem? Oh, did it add 1? Why? Starts with 1, checks that it's not 0. Oh, I'm adding this. I'm adding an extra 1, so I need to do even uglier things. So I'm adding first. God, this is horrible. Okay. It's like this is the wrong kind of loop. But you can make it work. Don't. Let me delete this. That's horrible. No, doesn't work with all of them, but it can. So let me get it back to the while loop, and then I'll show you. Another way of doing this, right, is there are 2 other keywords that allow us to deal with loops. There is break, which gets you out of the loop, and there is continue, which skips the rest of the loop and goes back to checking.
What gets back to checking?
Continue.
So continuous keeps the current loop.
Continue terminates exactly the current iteration,
Okay.
and break gets you out of the loop. I often use breaks, not often, but I sometimes use breaks. I almost never use continue. It's like
In real work.
in real work, I use breaks sometimes, not very often. I tend to return from functions within a loop, but not almost never break. Now, for this loop, actually break is the right thing. I don't need to do this cheating, right? And if you with the do while loop, we were cheating because we were adding an extra thing, except that it was a 0, so it was okay. What I really want to do is so in this case, I'm going to keep looping forever while true. Read a number, or print, please enter a number, read it, and then if that number is 0, I'm going to get out of the loop. I'm done. Otherwise, I'm going to add that number. Yeah, so we'll keep asking until you get 0, which is what we wanted.
Kind of like a recursion.
Sorta. It's a loop, yes.
I'm sorry, I don't see how that's any different from
Recursion?
the recursion function.
Because I only call this function once. Yes, they are similar. Recursion allows me to do
Oh, it
iterations.
just does it infinitely?
Yes, except for this break.
Oh, wait. The loop is also infinite?
The loop is infinite-ish, except that I'm not breaking on the condition. Infinite in the sense that I'm not breaking on the condition, I'm breaking here. My exit condition is in the middle of the loop.
The exit condition being that
Yes.
and then that's different from recursion because the recursion function just
Recursion involves a function that calls itself. Here, there is no function that calls itself.
oh, okay.
We are doing the same kind of stuff. We did this. We actually did.
Yeah, sorry, it just looks. Really
We did something very similar to this with recursion. In fact, assignment 5 is assignment 4, but now with loops instead of with recursion.
Really?
Yes, I think
Okay.
I cheated on purpose, and I used the exact same test just because I don't have to write more tests. So it's almost the exact same thing.
Okay.
In real life, you don't have to use a specific loop. Most people tend to use while loops or for loops. In fact, another way that you can write this is like this.
Why?
Because this looks prettier. In fact, this is read as a forever loop.
So why can
You
go
don't
with-
have any initialization, you don't have any condition, you don't have any changes. It's the same as a while true. It just looks cuter. I tend to write while true, but this one is a lot of people kind of cheat and only learn for loops because they are all equivalent, right? And the for loop is kind of more general than the while. Just a while loop with prettier syntax. So just learn the for loop and never use anything else.
We're not going to do that in this case, right?
No. Although after kind of this lecture, yes, I don't terribly care which loop you use. If you do something horrible, then I'll probably point it when I do the code reviews, like this is horrible.
Okay.
But even I tend to be fairly lenient with that kind of stuff with style. It's like, this is horrible, but it's optional to change because it has the more redeeming quality. It works. Okay, shall we take a quick break? Like a 5-minute break?
Let me know if I'm slowing you all down.
No, if you are, that is good. We should have all the questions because the people who are watching this video or who will eventually watch this video have no chance to ask questions. So, and many times people tend to be shy about asking questions, right? And you feel dumb when you ask a question. So the more questions you ask, the better, because there may be other people in class who are just either not paying attention enough to ask the question or shy. Or, yeah.
So this one, you talk about to create pull request.
Yeah.
So shouldn't it be 5 to master?
Yes.
Or just what's the difference to master or to A5?
To A5 you cannot, because that's the difference, right? Because
Actually, it's like this pull request is for you, right?
but the pull request is going to show me the changes. The pull request says, I would like you to merge these changes, to put these changes into that branch. If you do it to the same branch,
Oh, makes sense.
it makes no sense because there are no changes.
Okay.
In fact, you're probably not like.
And then you will be reviewing it and
Yeah.
approve it. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. And normally, I review, approve, and merge, and so now they go into master.
Nice. Thank you.
Sure. I'll be back in a second. Take advantage of the 5-minute break.
You guys here in the first week.
I was here.
You were here. And you were like,
I'm
online,
online.
but then you choose to come over here.
Yeah, really, I just want to get this bit thing figured out. Get
That's
the
what
bucket.
Yeah, I started making copies whenever I do. I just started copying.
I just redid 5 and I copied and pasted my code to a Word document. Yeah, that's a smart idea. You had just said it, I was like, hold on, it just happened to me.
You pointed out in assignment 4 that the grader was wrong. I found that error too. The 10, it was like,
Yeah, I sent in question to him. Just print out, don't calculate, don't go for the calculation. Just print out that return, satisfy return 10. Return 15, return 10.
oh, okay, so calculate it and then,
Assignment 3.
so just system.out.println and then sales amount, you know, whatever.
What was it?
That was assignment 4. Or no, 3, sorry. Yeah, it was 3.
Yeah. Yeah, I prepared I had a lot for that. This is just written there, I guess. Written there.
Oh, okay. I'll do that.
Yeah, I was doing calculation like commission, and all this.
Yeah, I was doing the same thing. For assignment 3. We were just talking about the
Oh,
commission one.
I just want you to return 10 or 15.
Yeah.
Simple.
I thought it was just like the diabetes one. Where you would return pre-diabetes.
Yeah.
I guess even then, you just return it.
Yeah. It would make sense to have you calculate the actual.
Yeah, I was kind of, the answer should come in like points and all, 10 and 1 and.
Yes, but if you look, there's 2 things that would, in my mind, force you to that interpretation. But one is that you return an int
Yeah.
rather than a double.
Yeah, you're not getting the decimal.
Right. So there is no way to return a decimal. The other one is I would normally call it different, right? If you look at the name of the function, is something like get discount percentage,
Yeah.
right? So it is the percentage.
Okay.
That the percentage is 10, as opposed to get discount or something like that, or get commission. Get commission rate, not get commission. But it was rate, not percentage, so I don't know. That could have gone either way, but it was a float. It was an int, not a double. So you can't return 0.1. You have to return 10.
For my fourth assignment, this was running, I'm getting the output. I'm getting the output, but tests are not getting.
You need to make sure that you're sending the output to the right place. Because many times, right, you achieve the thing that on the screen it looks like this, but
It's like, okay, I got.
but that's the screen, that's not where I asked you to send it to, right? Because the thing is that potentially the way we write these things and we test them, you could use them to send stuff to a file rather than to the screen. And so if you're printing to system.out, that's going to be wrong, or those kinds of things. Okay, so let's switch gears for a little while and talk about using objects and actually objects, right? We have used them a little bit, but we have kind of, the other way around, minus. We have kind of glossed over. We have a difference between primitives like int and char and objects. The only object we have used is string. And the string looks a lot like a primitive because it's immutable. You cannot change it. Let me go to Java REPL.
Primitive?
The guys that are not objects, ints and cards and
Oh, okay.
data types that Java understands. We will see that you can define your own classes, your own kinds of objects.
Oh, okay.
But we'll see that later. Right now, so primitives are the basic things that Java understands, like int and Boolean. Strings are somewhere in the middle. They are officially objects. They are actually implemented in code rather than just be something that's there, but they are almost. So we are going to use a couple of other things, point, rectangle, and dimension classes, just because they are there. And I don't want to get into how do you define your own classes, right? So an object, string s, right? I can not initialize my thing. Work. Java REPL is not quite Java, but it almost is.
Why do you use it?
Because it's online. Because you can use it online.
Right, but how's that any different from
Eclipse? Because Eclipse is not online, it has to be installed on your machine. And actually, you need to write 7 layers of manure before you can get to this. I can do this. Right? I didn't have to declare a main, I didn't have to declare a class, I didn't have to create a project.
So this thing hitting to the server, which has got all the libraries built in?
Yes, there is some server somewhere that's doing stuff,
So
but,
it's like
but it's not
Java,
your
but
problem.
cleaned up.
It's actually, it's gonna be even better. Java 9 has a shell, has a REPL. So that's gonna be even better for learning, but it's not ready yet. So we cannot use it. I was hoping to be able to use it on this class, but no. I'm not even sure that I'll be able to use it in fall, but chances are we'll be able to use it next spring. Yeah.
REPL, but all has to be in one line?
It tends to have horrible things, like some things have to be all in one line, and yeah. And sometimes, like, it didn't really understood this because it didn't do a thing with it. Whereas with this one it did, and now it has the variable s. And then sometimes, if I don't type stuff for a while, it kind of forgets, kind of kills my session. And so the next time I had my variables and I typed them, and it's like, you don't have it. But on the other hand, it is there, it is free. I can do it in my browser. I don't need to install stuff. I can actually do this, java.awt.point p equals new java.awt.point. And that creates a point.
So did you have to do all that because you didn't have the import?
Yes,
Okay.
and I have no clue. I hope that Java REPL does import. The full name of the class is java.awt.point. The import statement just allows me to give it a shorter name. So it says, when you see point, I really mean java.awt.point. Now I can just do this. A few things about objects. I declare variables, right, and they look the same, almost the same as an int, right? Except when I create an object, I use the keyword new. So instead of saying int a equals 3, right now I have to do new and put the name of the class again, and this actually calls the constructor. And the object documentation or something like that will tell me which constructors I can use, which parameters I can pass, and what do they mean. After I have my variables, right, I can use as printing, right, and it will print. Java REPL is nice, and it tells me there is a point. And then I can call methods on it, either access variables or call methods with the dot operator. So p.x actually gets a variable of my object p. In a way, p is a reference to that object. The object exists in memory, and p is a way to refer to it. Objects have both identity and state. So if I do point p2 equals new point 35, that is a different object. P and P2 are two distinct objects, separate from each other. They just happen to have the exact same values right now. Does that make sense? Whereas that doesn't happen with ints. 3 is 3, right? And 5 is 5. There is no two different 5s. And that is all you need to know about objects now. Talked about import statement. We talked about new, right? You encapsulate the state, right? So you could pass it here. Given that we have, oops, where the heck am I here? Given that we have this possibility, right, of having two objects with the same state, my variable is a reference to the object, right? My variable is not the object anymore. And so now I can do point p3 equals p. Now, p and p2 have the same value, but they are different objects. However, p and p3 are the same object. Does that make sense? So if I ask p equals p2, I would get false. They're not the same object. But p equals p3 should return true because they are the same thing. They're just two names for the same thing.
Or they're referencing the same?
They're referencing the exact same location in memory.
How are they? Where did you set it to 3?
I did this.
Oh, you did that. Okay.
That's why they're referencing the exact same object.
Okay.
So when you call new, it actually creates a new object in memory. And your variable is just a reference to that object. If you set something null, then you may get null pointer exception. So I can do point pn equals null. And so if I do pn.x, I get horrible things. Besides identity operation, Java also has equality. So even though P and P2 are not the same object, P dot equals P2 should return true. Because they have the same value. Given that P and P3 are the same thing, if I do P3.x equals 4, who did I change, P or P3? They're the same thing, they both changed, right? So if I ask now P.x, I get 4. Does that make sense? P changed. P2, of course, never changed because it was a different object.
Why was P 4?
Sorry, P.x. P.x is, yes, I set it to 4 here.
So how did that work?
P3 and P are the same thing. There are two ways of referring to the exact same thing. So if you change one,
But you didn't put any .x,
I did. P3.x is 4,
right?
and then P.x.
Right.
So that tells me that it's 4.
What about?
When I did P, it just printed 4 here.
So every single character in there is set to 4.
What do you mean every single character in there? P is set not to 4. P is set to a new to an object that contains x equals 4 and j equals 5. And y equals 5. So did I manage to confuse you? Sorry. I'll give you a sec so you can verbalize the question.
No, that's all right.
So what's it? So the equals function compares two objects.
The equal, yes, the identity operator tells you whether they are the same object. Compares two references
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
tells you whether they're the same object.
I was actually asking p dot.
The dot equals?
Are these two? No, of course they're not the same. So dot equals compares values.
Dot equals is class dependent. Whoever designed the class
Okay.
could do whatever, but it's supposed to compare values in a kind of the thing is that it is a meaning dependent thing, right? You think about it, you write a class that does fractions, right? Maybe it would make sense to say that 3/6 is the same as 1/2. So even though the state is officially not the same, the numerator of one is 1 and 2, the other one is 3 and 6, the equals operator may return true because they are equal, they are the same thing. And so it's the equals method is meaning dependent.
That double equal means objects.
Are these two things a reference to the same object?
Okay.
This is different than primitives, right? With primitives, I cannot have two references to the same primitive, to the same int. I have two different ints. They may have the same value, but they're two different ints. Each variable is a location in memory. Here, your variable is a location in memory, but what it contains is a reference to an object rather than the object.
So objects, you can have more than one.
You can have more than one reference to the same object, and you could have 0 references to that object, right? What happens when the object has no references anymore?
Does it become null?
No, the object is not null. The variable may become null, right? But like right now I have P2, right? That's the only reference to that particular object. If I do P2 equals P, now nobody knows about this object, right?
Oh,
What happens to it? The first question is, why the heck do you care? You cannot access it anymore. Why do you care? Why do you care is because it occupies memory, so it will eventually be garbage collected. That's what it's garbage, so it's garbage collection. Eventually, that memory is returned to you. When? Who knows? Eventually. Sometimes it is important, and then you go figure out which algorithm are they using for garbage collection and when am I going to get it back and things like that. But normally, you don't care. You can treat the memory as almost infinite, especially in this class. Oops, I'm pressing the wrong keys. So let's do fun stuff. Look at this piece of code. What's going to be the value of some x and the value of some y?
I think it's 15.
Public static void. But we can, what happens here? Very important, my point. Yeah, that works. P1 is a new point with 10 and 10, right? So I have a new object in memory which has x equals 10. Hey! Sorry, 1 second. How are you? Yes. Yes. At least I have some here. Maybe. Sorry. Yes. By the way, you may be interested in meeting him anyway. That's Dr. Rich. Alfred Nusslock. He goes by Dr. Rich usually. He teaches mostly IT, but and he's kind of one of my mentors. Yes. From what I was actually working here. He is wise. If you ever get a chance of taking a class with him, probably a good investment of time and effort. Elias is pointing to whom? This guy, right? So when I do this, what do I do? It is now 510, right? Sorry? Oh, plus equal. Sorry, I am an idiot. So it's 15. Yes, thank you. Now, alias now points to PT2. Alias dot y plus equals 5. So this is equivalent to PT2 dot y equals 10. 5 plus 5. I'm doing plus equal. Right? You don't sound.
Oh, that's why the other value was different? Oh, okay.
Yes. Now, sum x is pt1.x plus pt2.x, so it's 15 plus 5. So it's going to be 20, right? And then sum y is going to be pt1.y, which is still 10 plus 15. So maybe. Maybe. Oh, 20 and 20. Where did we mess up? Oh, sorry. pt1.y plus pt2.y. So this should be 10. What? Yes.
To teach us how to use breakpoint.
No, I don't want to do that. I was telling to some people that I don't like using the debugger because, especially in the beginning, it is fairly easy to use it as a crutch and not to learn. For these kinds of programs, right, you can almost randomly alter strings without understanding what it means and still get the right answer.
I think it's the opposite. The debugger tool confused the heck
We can play with the debugger in a second.
Log we can see once we put it the log.
That's right.
No, I'm asking a log file if I will do some error. How can it see the log?
If you have an error,
How it got it?
that depends on how you executed the file. If you did Gradle run, it will appear on your screen. If you did this, then this thing will show you errors.
Log file that we can go back and see.
What do you mean by a log file?
Output of the execution.
The output of the execution. How did you execute this? If you executed it in Eclipse, right? It will print. This is the log file. If you executed it with Gradle W run, then it will be on the screen. You can redirect to somewhere. There is no magic. You can set up log files, but normally no. You would set up a log file if you want to. That's what you do in real life. But
I think for a new person, how long do you think that they should, like, you estimate they would spend on a problem? Just out of curiosity, like 2 hours?
I am assuming, not like on an assignment, I'm assuming it's a couple of hours. And it's also the horrible thing, right, is that it really should be 10 minutes the second time around, right? The problem is that many times, and that's the point of the assignment, right? The assignment will actually highlight things that when you read the material, you nodded and said, yeah, and you didn't really understand, right? And so that may take you.
So I'd spend like 7 hours. I don't know if that's normal to spend like 7 hours.
It is normal, unfortunately.
Okay, I have to
Hopefully-
spend some time in the assignment because I have to go back again to see what this function is.
Hopefully it won't be 7 hours every assignment.
Oh, okay.
That's yes. But it should be some assignments it will be 7 hours. And actually it terribly sucks, but this is how programming works. 2 minutes before you're done, you are not done. Right? It's not very linear. It's not I'm not 90% done. Most of the things are discrete. So yes, you did 3 out of 5 in that sense, right? You got 60, and it may be a semicolon or a dot, right? But it usually involves
Okay.
Yeah. Where did we mess up? What did we mess up? This is making it 15. What? How did my Y become? I am an idiot. This is 10. So yeah, that is right. This is 10 plus 10, so it's 20. This became 10, so it's 10 plus 10. Now, what he was saying and what you may want to do, again, use with caution. I tend to not like this, but what you can do is set up breakpoints, toggle breakpoint. What this is saying is when you're running this, when you hit this, stop. And so if you do start debugging, or just this will normally do it,
It'll show you what line you messed up on.
it will stop there, although it didn't do it right now. Why?
You'll be able to see if you're getting the
You
right
will
values.
be able to see what are the values at any given time. Is this the run with? Yeah, I normally do printouts, right? And that helps me because I need to think, right? The solution is not the debugger. The solution is to think more deeply about what you're doing, right? Now, sometimes the debugger can be a tool, and it is a very useful tool, but
I just use it for syntax.
the syntax should have nothing to do with the debugger, right? Eclipse should help you with syntax. Yes. No, but the debugger, let me see if I can.
You should have 7 for Windows.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, this is all horrible, different on the Mac. Run, debug. This is what I want.
Yeah.
It's Command F11, of course. Yes. Eclipse changes and shows me oodles of stuff, but it actually stopped here in the middle, right? And so here I can go and inspect that stuff. It's actually showing me this stuff. This is the value of PT1. This is the value of PT2.
Yeah, that's what I use for the recursion.
Yes, but it's not syntax, right? This is
I guess this is.
semantics. And so you can see the values at any given time and what is going on. It is very useful as a learning tool, right? If you're learning, you can misuse it as a crutch and kind of, oh, I don't know why this is wrong, but I wanted to get 20 here and I'm getting 15. So let me just add 5. Or make it a plus instead of a minus.
I didn't do that.
No, I know you didn't do that, but that's why I don't like you guys using the debugger too much. Because if you use it to help you think deeper, that's good. But if you use it instead of thinking, that is bad. So from what I have seen, it kind of enables you to not think too much in a class like this.
Yeah, and I mean, wouldn't you pick up on that though, like when we submit it?
That depends. Sometimes you can, like, if you think about it, we were doing, like, all of our functions have been so simple, right?
Okay.
Recursion, yeah. Up to assignment 1, 2, and 3, right? There was no need. Recursion, yes, but it's fairly easy to like fix an off by 1 error in your recursion thing, right? In Power, and start it the wrong way, but just saying, you know what? Oh, I just end up with an extra 1, so I just divide by base,
Yeah.
right? Because
Then you find out.
that fixes my problem. It actually passes the test, right? I will find out when I look at it. I'll tell you why the heck did you do this, right? But it's still, you ended up, it's not cheating. It works. It's allowed, right? But you didn't learn.
Well, I mean, isn't that cheating yourself
It's cheating yourself, exactly. It's not learning. And so,
for the exam?
yes, I don't like to show the debugger.
So that's why. Okay, because I was like, why didn't you teach us about this? And then, okay,
It's,
so that
it's on
makes sense.
purpose. It's on
Okay.
purpose. I have seen many people I have kids, so I tend to look at it as reading, right? English is weird because it's not very phonetic, it's half phonetic. So you actually need to learn how to read, right? And it's complicated. Probably other languages are more complicated. But I'm a native Spanish speaker, so over there you just learn 26 letters. They all have the same sound. You learn to read in kindergarten and you're done, and you can read whatever. You can read whichever complicated word. It's just sounds one after the other. In English, it doesn't work that way, right? And so it is very common in English for kids to memorize words rather than the complex phonetic rules. And so be able to read in first, second grade, right? You're reading cat, dog, those kinds of things. They learn the whole word. And so somewhere between third and fourth grade, they just hit a wall. But you don't know it until fourth grade. It's hard to know in first grade whether they learn to read or not. The debugger can help you do that kind of, I didn't really understand this thing, but I'm a good student, so I'll put enough effort that I'll pass, and then you will bang your head on the wall on data structures, or even worse, bang your head on the wall on your first job, which would really suck. I mean, I would rather you bang your head on the wall on data structures than.
Now, in the workplace, like, we have data warehousing tools, we use ETL tools. So in that tool, we mostly use debugger because we want to see the data where it's getting break.
They are very useful too, but they can let people not understand this stuff and still achieve the right result. And usually, when you have a problem, you are in deep doo-doo because you didn't understand what's going on anyway. That makes me antsy for a class like this.
But that's where coding back comes in, right? So coding back, it just isn't that what coding back does? Like it just tells you when it's wrong.
But it just tells you it's wrong or right. It doesn't tell you right. Just tells you right when you run it with this, you get this value, and you should get 5 and you get 3. You have to go figure out why.
Oh, okay.
So it's not. It's all a matter of balance and which tools you use or not. But I haven't taught debuggers in intro classes the last few times that I taught it because I saw that they were causing more problems for the students. So now I don't have that much experience because I haven't been teaching them for a while. Yeah, I think that's all you need to know. Oh, a couple of things. Every object in Java has 2 strings, which is what everybody is doing here. When you do this, it calls the 2-string method of the point and then concatenates it. Same with ints and things like that. We also have equals. We talked about equality versus identity. A couple of other things that we're going to use: rectangle, and it has, a rectangle in Java for AWT has X and Y and then width and height. And dimensions, which only has the width and height. A bunch of the assignments, assignment 5 is assignment 4, but with loops. Assignment 6 is about objects and things like that. And it's fairly simple stuff, except that you're going to be using objects for the first time. So you need to figure out where does the period go. You can pass objects as parameters, right? And then use them. We will be defining still functions, right? The functions may return a primitive. They may also return an object. So you may need to call new inside or something like that. It is important to realize that when you pass an object to a function, it's being passed by reference. So the function could actually modify that object. You pass an int, you're passing the value, and so the variable will not get modified. When you're passing an object, the stuff inside that object may get modified. It's usually a very bad idea to do that, but it is allowed. You need to be careful not to pass that thing. And if you do, make sure that your functions have names that tell you in big bold letters you are changing your parameter or something like that. Normally, I tend to make those functions return void so that I know that it's modifying any of the parameters.
So I think the purpose of the void is only the object passed in this function is modified, but the original one still is not changed.
The function of the void is saying I'm not returning anything, right? Because when I'm returning, I'm like the function of the purpose of this function is to calculate a value, right? Mm-hmm. If the purpose function should do one thing, or you get confused, right? If a function does 7 things at the same time, you get really confused about when do I call it. And so if your function modifies an argument and returns a value, right? It's like doing two things at once. So normally the kind of principle of least surprise should say, if I call something, it returns a value, it shouldn't modify any of the things that it could pass. Right? It would. It's doable, and we do it all the time, but it's kind of, to me, it is very surprising, right?
And it gives an error in case you void and try to use a return.
Yes, you cannot assign void to anything, so it will give you an error. In the compiler will give you an error. Yes, because a void is not a value, so you cannot assign it to a variable or anything like that. Any other questions? No. Answers? No. Cool. Then we have a midterm next Wednesday. The material that we covered today is not involved in that midterm.
And then we're gonna have 5, 6, 7, 8,
9, 10,
9,
and
10,
11.
11, 12, and then 5.
11.
11.
There is no 12. And the final. Yes.
Final exam will be starting from midterm? Or
Final exam is comprehensive, but it's not terrible. If you think about it, the only thing that you would need to take a look at it again is recursion, because you need to know primitives and functions and things like that in order to keep doing the rest of the stuff. So it's not, kind of tends to focus more on the latest stuff, but yeah, it's always, programming is always comprehensive.
But when writing a program, we are not used to using laptops and do paper coding.
Yes, you do.
Practice using pen and paper.
It's not a bad idea to do that. It's not a bad idea to, I would say, don't trust too much on your IDE. Don't use autocomplete too much, right? Actually type this stuff, train your fingers, and it's the same fingers, so it's not that bad. But yeah, it may not be a bad idea to practice in paper. It is on purpose. It's not because I did a couple of times, both as a student and as a teacher, exams on the computer. There's two problems. One of them is that the real problem with the computer is that it becomes time management, much worse than the other one. Normally, I give you 5 or 6 questions, right? You will answer them, and if you get stuck on one, you'll just go to the next one. On the computer, you don't, right? You're getting a compiler error. You can't even move to the next one, right? So when I did the exams on the computer, it becomes a very bimodal distribution. You get the people who would have gotten 90 on a paper test, and they just mess something, right? If I give you the assignment on the computer with unit tests, right? The people who have gotten 90 usually get 100, because now I have the unit test, and God, yes, I forgot to add 1 here. So, but the people who have gotten 70 tend to get 0, because they couldn't even fix the first semicolon. Whereas on paper, right, you wrote it, and I won't even notice that you're missing a semicolon, because I'm also reading it on paper. I'm not a compiler. So if not, right, you should just write gibberish, then I'm not going to give you points. But, cool. And I think that's it for today. I'll be sending you an email, just because the other thing that I tried to do is to get you guys kind of in touch with other things happening in the community. I just got, and one of my mailing lists, I got an email about company Pardot that is owned by Salesforce, maybe? I don't know. One of those guys. They are here in Atlanta. They are doing a recruiting event in a couple of weeks that I'm going to forward to you guys. You may not be there yet, but it's not a bad idea to go there. Free food, free beer, which is always good. And kind of you get to talk to people, and maybe in a couple of semesters when you'd be applying, you would already know somebody, especially if you get on their spam list and you go to the next couple of events. And so now you have somebody who you know when you're looking for a job. But some of you may actually be at this stage of looking for a job. You're just doing this class because you're just doing this class. I have no relationship with that company other than the fact that I drank their beer 6 months ago. And now I know one person who works there, but not telling you to go work for them or anything like that. Just passing it along.
I have a question for the people because I was here last week. I came in here 30 minutes before no one was in here. So then like I saw the Google Hangouts and I thought you were somewhere else. For the people who signed up for the in-class sessions, does that hurt their grade when they don't show up?
No. Okay. No. Other than next week for the midterm and
yeah,
the thing for the final. No.
Like missing out, but yeah.
This varies a lot depending on the professor. I don't care.
Okay.
I make it a point to never take attendance or anything like that. Especially you guys are adults. If you can find a better use of your time, by all means. And if just right, I won't be offended or anything like that. But also it may be your commute is 45 minutes, and so you can definitely find a better use of those 45 minutes and watch it later. Whatever. It also makes it a lot easier when there's a storm or something like that. Your 4 or 5 minute commute may become 2 hours. So I will be here, but you don't have to be. Let me close the Google thingy. Maybe, yes, stop.